price of Microsoft 365 Copilot was first announced as $30 per month back in 2023, many users who were waiting for its arrival freaked out. They had expected it to just be included, and now it seemed incredibly expensive. But fast forward 3 years, and there are now lots of people with $200 per month AI subscriptions. Coders are paying for millions of tokens through AI API services, and Microsoft has just recently announced its nearly $100 per month Frontier Suite Microsoft 365 E7. Copilot doesn't seem so expensive anymore, but is that price a problem? Let's dig in and consider whether AI is currently too cheap and what that should mean for you and your business. My name is Nick DeCourcy. I'm a Microsoft 365 consultant who specialises in AI adoption for small and medium-sized businesses. I'm also a Microsoft MVP for Microsoft 365 Copilot. If you're interested in keeping up with AI advancements, make sure you get subscribed to the channel and drop this video a like to make sure that you see more from me in the future. And if you're interested in working with me, check out the links down in the video description to get in contact. You may think that the all-you-can-eat AI subscription started with ChatGPT Plus in early 2023, but the reality is that Microsoft has always been more of a leader on this than the industry cares to admit. In June 2022, before ChatGPT even came online, Microsoft subsidiary GitHub released their Copilot AI code completion product based on OpenAI Codex at a price of $10 per month or $100 per year. And while this may seem like an outlier data point when it comes to business-focused AI, this simple $10 per month subscription is going to become one of the star exhibits in this video. Stick around to find out why. But it really was the arrival of ChatGPT Plus at $20 per month that established a pricing anchor for an all-inclusive AI subscription in our minds. You paid your fee, and within reason, you got to use ChatGPT as much as you wanted. But even at this point, the evidence available suggested that this pricing was based more on what it was imagined users would be prepared to pay, rather than what those heavier users who felt incentivized to pay at all would really cost to serve. AI was being built for the age of Uber and DoorDash, where if you're not losing money to expand and instead turning a profit, you're actually no good at business. Time went on. Microsoft decided $30 per month for their enterprise Copilot. Everyone freaked out. But as new services arrived from Anthropic, Google, Perplexity and others, this somewhere around $20 to $30 per month fee stood firm. And we really didn't see a significant break in it, either on the consumer side or the business side, until OpenAI pulled the trigger on a power user license tier with ChatGPT Pro at $200 per month at the end of 2024. Yet within months, Sam Altman was tweeting to explain that this wasn't profitable either. Yet the AI industry at this point had only really dipped its toe into subsidising our AI use. To get really serious about losing money, they needed a new technology. And luckily, the leading AI labs had just the thing: tools and agents. The unit of work of our AI models is tokens. A token is a few characters, and a token or two or three make up each word you see in your responses. AI essentially spends tokens to interpret the requests we give them and to produce the outputs they respond back with. A simple one-paragraph answer might be 100 tokens or so. A multi-page report might be several thousand. Whereas in our by-the-license AI products like Claude Pro or Microsoft 365 Copilot, our experience is largely abstracted away from tokens. If you look at how these vendors charge for their APIs, you can see they attribute a cost to ingesting tokens and producing them. And depending on the model you use, that price can be up to hundreds of dollars per million tokens, although this pricing has generally dropped over time. When we chat with AI in the way we did with ChatGPT when it first arrived, our token use was fairly constrained. We could only type so much or so fast. We were limited in how big a context we could input or how many documents we could attach. Our responses would often be subjectively long in terms of what I or you might type in response to a chat-based question, but objectively, in comparison to what we often produce with AI today, they were pretty restrained. But agents changed this, as did tool use. Consider one of the earliest tools we got access to, web search. OpenAI added a browsing plugin to ChatGPT in May 2023, just a few months after Bing Chat had first delivered the concept. Microsoft in the lead again, by the way. At that point, most AI users were not typing the content of websites in their prompt box, or copying and pasting text from multiple pages, or downloading a copy and attaching it. But overnight, in terms of the AI chatbot's token consumption, this is effectively what started to happen. It would go out and read content from the web to ground itself. This was useful, revolutionary, and if it hadn't been for Sydney, Microsoft might have taken home the prize then and there. But just imagine the impact on cost. Even with the most efficient search, the AI model has to ingest a reasonable amount of additional data to truly use the search results usefully. Where every token costs money, every web-grounded response costs significantly more than had previously been the case. Yet we were only just getting started. Look, for example, at this web-grounded response using Researcher Agent in Microsoft 365 Copilot. I'm no longer having an AI model review a handful of web pages. It's going out and systematically discovering information from dozens and even hundreds of sources. Every word it consumes helps it to do better, but every token it consumes costs Microsoft more money. And in comparison to some agents, Researcher might look like a miser that is in no way generous with the tokens it will use. Here, just building a single page app in a Copilot page turns a simple request into line upon line of code. And if I change my mind and ask it to change something, it goes off and writes a lot of it over again. Each request of the AI model starts from scratch. It doesn't hold my chat's context in memory. The way I build context is by including it in my prompt. These diagrams from Anthropic show this concept really well. The context injection is something that happens automatically and transparently in the chat-based tools we use, but it's important to understand that essentially everything we see in our AI tools is based on progressively bigger prompts running against models with goldfish memory, not real learning or recognition of prior aspects of the conversation. And while agents do have approaches to boost the efficiency here in terms of concepts like progressive disclosure or context compaction, the reality is that well-grounded multi-step conversations that result in significant outputs and then output edits use orders of magnitude more tokens than those chats we were having with ChatGPT back in 2023 for the same $20 per month. And we also shouldn't forget about reasoning. It's not just using external tools that bring in additional data that has started consuming more tokens. Reasoning is the technical leap that has allowed our modern LLMs to be so much better than what we started with just a few years ago. But this isn't entirely down to like-for-like improvements. It's actually largely down to adding a reasoning budget to requests that allows the model to burn tokens on internal thought before it generates your response. To be clear, this leap that greater attention generates better results is a real one, but it also means now that 100 token paragraph might cost you 1,000 tokens or more to create, depending on how hard the model decides to think and how difficult your request is. All of these factors have pushed token use to stratospheric levels. Individual tokens, even from the best frontier models, have decreased in price in absolute terms since generative AI tools first arrived. This is largely seen to be down to the scale the providers are now operating on and the efficiency of the technology they are using for inference. But it should be understood that while we have visibility into the way that vendors price tokens for API access and assume decreases there represent commensurate decreases in their compute costs, it's impossible to know whether those rates are actually any more commercially profitable than their flat rate subscription products. But even if we do assume those are commercially realistic prices, the price reductions we have seen do not keep pace with how hungry our agentic tool-using and reasoning AI workloads are for tokens. The takeaway? We are burning tokens quicker than we can find ways to process them more efficiently. And it's becoming more and more clear over time that these structural issues in the revenue and costs of AI services are starting to have an impact. Recently, after great fanfare in the fall of 2025 that Copilot would be coming to the Microsoft 365 apps, whether or not users had full Microsoft 365 Copilot licenses, Microsoft backtracked. From May 2026, organizations with 2,000 or more Microsoft 365 seats will not get Copilot in the apps for basic tier users. The message? You want Copilot in the most useful places? Then you need to pay for it. But Microsoft is far from alone here in changing the availability of its AI offerings. Remember that $10 a month GitHub Copilot subscription we talked about at the top of the video? As of recording, Microsoft just won't take your money for it. They have restricted sign-ups on several tiers as they simply lack capacity to take new users and provide service to current ones. And as for Anthropic, they've been moving the goalposts for their users for months. Changes in token allocations, changes to how enterprises pay for Claude seats, with new signups being billed on consumption, and most recently they indicated that they might be considering removing Claude Code from their Pro tier. These are all data points that, if considered together, point to trouble that these vendors are trying to navigate in balancing their capacity and how much revenue they need to drive it. Over the last 20 years, the move to the cloud has had fantastic benefits for everyone involved with or reliant upon technology. We have seen a boom in capability that is now being accelerated by AI, but to say those benefits have been distributed equally would be foolish. Many businesses are in a better position from a technical perspective because of SaaS, but the businesses that have had the greatest wins financially are the major cloud vendors like Microsoft. For the last few years, without factoring in AI, SaaS inflation has run at more than 12%, and now further increases across stacks like Microsoft 365 are piling on. We should be clear-eyed about one thing though. The costs the vendors are going to need to recoup from this AI race are in an entirely different league from anything we saw with the move to the cloud. And even though cloud transitions and SaaS are pretty sticky for businesses that adopt them, the systemic lock-in we will see with AI might be structurally altogether different. Most industries, and particularly knowledge work heavy industries where tools like Copilot are largely focused, are used to a paradigm where we invest in human labour to drive productive outputs. And each individual business does not have total control over the cost of that human labour. As we've seen the last few years with the hiring issues many companies experience post-COVID, external conditions can ebb and flow in a way that can make hiring much harder, less reliable and more costly. However, on a case-by-case basis, when hiring a new employee or being asked for a raise by an existing one, we have the option of considering that individual's capacity to perform in delivering the productive outputs we need and to make an appropriate financial offer. It's a negotiation, not a shakedown. But now we are seeing a picture where productivity growth is backed by AI, humans with copilots, teams of independent agents, a narrative where the frontier firm can do a lot more but only by amplifying each human with a connected swarm of agents. The ultimate business is a team of workers acting as agent bosses. I largely believe in this vision, but the economics of it are very different if a Copilot license costs $30 per month versus it costing $300 per month versus $3,000 and so on. And when Microsoft or OpenAI or Anthropic announces their next price rise, for most organisations, it absolutely is not a negotiation, and for many, can very much feel like a shakedown. But the message here isn't that you should run screaming from AI because the price might go up. No more than the message you should hear would be that you should run screaming from Microsoft 365 because you have to pay for it each month, rather than being able to skip a cycle in buying that new CD-ROM when you were buying perpetual Office. In fact, if we agree that the AI tools are useful and can probably continue to be useful even at greater cost, then these vendors working out their pricing is a good thing as it assures sustainability and allows us to plan a transition that makes long-term sense. The number of AI practitioners who simply run on the assumption that the price will go down in the long term is shocking, given our existing SaaS history, and we should be considering this issue with a more realistic outlook. First, accepting that AI is currently priced too low might actually help us make better decisions about how people should interact with it. Microsoft's research shows that a power user of Copilot saves somewhere up to 2 hours per week on average. At $30 per user per month, 20 licenses cost $7,200 per year. If those 20 users save 2 hours each week, you've recovered the cost of an entire full-time employee before you've even started measuring productivity improvements. Now, that's not the point that Microsoft is making with its research. The product is called Copilot deliberately. The marketing position is augmentation, not replacement. But the math at $30 a month invites the replacement reading, whether Microsoft intended it or not. At a higher price, that math gets harder to make, and the more honest framing, Copilot as a multiplier for people you already have, becomes the obvious one. But we also need to dive further into this issue. AI tools being sold as a loss leader, driving largely irreversible organisation structure decisions, is something we should take time to understand. Even the most human-centric organisations that decide to embrace AI will eventually see structural change because of it. Needing to do more and lacking the capacity to do it is the most obvious reason companies expand their workforce. And AI increases the size of the gap that can be filled with technology before that lack of capacity drives extending the team. But the more of the how and what you do in your business you hand over to AI vendors in the cloud, the less long-term control you actually have on how much it costs to run your business. The way tasks get distributed to AI tools and the way jobs get created for AI agents does not map well onto how we build job descriptions for humans. If one day OpenAI raises their pricing or constrains their availability to a point where using their service just doesn't work anymore, you will not just be able to fire those AI workers and replace them with humans in the same way you'd be able to say no thanks to a worker asking for an unreasonable pay rise and then go and hire a replacement. All of this is only a problem though if our roadmap assumes the price of AI starts low and just keeps going down. If we assume the pricing we see today is unrealistic, and that these services will likely increase in price in a way that is more commensurate with their increase in utility in the future, we could embrace AI and get the benefit of big tech's introductory losses today, and insulate ourselves for when they decide they need to turn a profit tomorrow. So what does this look like? Well, number one, assume that a $30 per month fee for Copilot is an introductory price, and use your savings to drive adoption activity that maximizes your return on investment today. Microsoft and a lot of other research has shown us that a greater focus on effective adoption and work pattern change radically improves outcomes with tools like Copilot. It is far more palatable to invest in those big, long-term organizational change programs today when you're only paying $360 for each user's enterprise AI subscription each year than in the future when you might be paying 5 or 10 times more. And of course, if you're ready to get help with this type of work, get in touch to learn how I can help. Check out the links down in the description. Number two, tighten your use cases to be as valuable if billed for consumption as if billed as a flat fee. One of the recent changes we've seen is Anthropic only allowing new enterprise tier signups for organizations agreeing to pay a lower per seat subscription, but with API price consumption billing. It seems logical to assume that eventually all the major vendors will move to some form of this. So now, with all-you-can-eat billing, is the opportunity to consider the efficiency of those AI-supported processes. Are you embedding a workflow where every user sends the same text to Copilot 10 times in different iterations before they're happy with it? Are people actually reading the token-heavy reports tools like Researcher create? There must be room for experimentation, but introducing the concept of AI being a variable business cost and training people to use it on that basis is likely a sensible cautionary step. And number three, anchor your token use in a future where they may be more expensive, or at least the most valuable outputs they build will cost you more. Whether you're building custom agents in Copilot Studio or full-fledged AI-powered systems in Azure or Foundry, starting from a position that tokens are to be spared and valued will help you build efficiency today and cost resiliency tomorrow. Not every task needs to use the latest model. Not every request requires a lot of thinking. Just as we expect human employees to use their time and resources efficiently, largely because of their cost, we must be more focused on this for our AI assistants too. The great thing about all these actions is that while they are future-looking in terms of the potential risk of AI costs increasing or availability constraining, there is absolutely no downside to them, even if costs stay the same or decrease. Better adoption means better outputs. A greater focus on using AI in ways that are valued prevents AI-generated overload and keeps use efficient. And building AI systems that are considerate of token spend makes your tools more observable and has other downstream benefits like less impact on the environment or energy use. These are upside-only actions that build your insurance policy against AI cost increases. Will $30 per month feel like a bargain for Copilot in the future? That $20 to $30 per month pricing anchor the AI vendors created back in 2023 looks increasingly wrong. What's less clear is whether or not this was down to a cynical plan to get us all hooked and then extract more value, or a genuine mismatch between the planned price and the discovered value. Yet the number of warning signs that this market is ripe for pricing realignment seem to be increasing every day. Should we be worried? It depends how we think about it. If AI price increases are seen as just another tax from the SaaS vendors boosting their profits at the expense of ours, then this will seem unpalatable. On the other hand, if we consider that our AI workers are now much more capable than they were when we hired them a few years back, isn't it time that we give them a pay rise? In the end, whether AI feels like a tax or an investment depends on what you do with it. Focus on strategy and adoption, and you'll find value even if the price increases. But if you buy technology without a real understanding of what you're trying to build or how your people will use it, then it will feel expensive, no matter the price. I hope this has been useful to you. Please let me know what you think about these issues down in the comments. Just go down there and start that conversation. Thanks for watching through to the end. Until the next video, bye bye.